Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. How are you?
It is a beautiful day.
It really is. It is absolutely what one would consider gorgeous.
We got our Adam Carolla stuff here. I was just going through it.
Ah, you're unpacking the swag, huh? Awesome.
For when he was fighting those nasty trolls.
Yes, and
saved podcasting.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Adam Carolla.
That's right.
For doing all that legwork.
And now we have the swag to prove we were part of it.
Yeah, we'll have to do something with it.
You know, I'm gonna put it on you and take a picture, and we're gonna post it. That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do.
And the hits went down this week. Speaking of hits, thank you to the listeners once again for a stellar first 5 days, fifth, sixth, first 6 days of the month, and you guys.
6 de Mayo.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I only know that because yesterday was Cinco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there,
right.
yeah.
It's 6 de Mayo
for all the people south of us.
Right.
Thank you so much. Fans. I mean, this is crazy. You guys are doing an awesome job spreading the word. We've gotten some emails, some good, some not so good. And, we look. I know.
I told you.
Okay, we're not going to do that. Right. Anyway, if you want to, thank you for all
the good ones.
And thank you for clicking through the Amazon banner.
And there's only one bad one. So.
And, yes. And thank you for clicking through the PayPal. And, of course, we've gotten a lot of new followers on Instagram because I said the last program, follow us on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Where do you go? You go to ampsandaxescast.com, and you'll see the little banner. You'll see the banner for Amazon. You'll see the banner for the PayPal, and then you see the little icons for our social media. Just do it, man. Right. Follow us, and we'll follow you back. Instagram, I don't think, has the same lock that Twitter does because we're kind of locked out on Twitter how many times we can follow, and we got tons of followers out there. But follow us out on Instagram because you get to see the picture, and I can put more in the description. That's the cool part. It's like Facebook. Nice, you can write a ton in there.
Cool.
And then you do all the hashtags and all, and we've,
You're not limited to using every cryptic abbreviation known to man?
No, not at all.
And I can't read some of these things sometimes.
And the good part is as we record this right now, Greg Mara show is the one that's currently up, and every day I post out a new picture, and I put a little caption there, and
I see that happening.
Yeah, and it trickles all the way down to Facebook, and I'm on Facebook under Mick Marcelino, and then we got Jeff Bober, and then we also have Amps and Axes. So we've got 3 sources there, and then we also have the Twitter, which is Amps and Axes, and then you can find us, of course, and do it all on our webpage. That way you don't have to go crazy.
Totally.
Sorry. And we actually have a YouTube page, and it has all the old Dave Nassy stuff on it. But if you come to our webpage, you will see the quick lick with Jason Sudeikis. Mm-hmm. And then we have the archives of both guys, Dave and Jason. Awesome. And you can see the links there, and you can go out and you can watch them. Now, Dave's stuff is all on our YouTube page, but Jason has his own.
Right.
And I wanted him to get the hits for that.
Sure.
So you go out there, check out that.
But it's available through us as well,
Yeah, you click. You can go right through our site, and if you want, you can hit YouTube, and then you'll see, and you can subscribe out there and give him some love.
Awesome.
Because he's throwing it at us. He's doing what is that? It's not a 335, is it? What is that hollow body that he just bought? And I apologize. Is it 339?
I missed it. I don't know.
See, now I'm going to have to look it up while you do your thing.
I do. I came in and just had this topic on my mind. I had seen a post. I'd seen a post that our friend Kirk McKim put up on Facebook.
Okay.
And it was a Billboard post. It was like a Billboard.com post. Not compost, but Billboard.com post. But it's compost, actually.
I guess.
And it was about how Nashville and country music and things like that, and this is probably where the style that you find now has probably come from, but how they are and have been cutting guitar solos just to there's a couple of reasons why they do it, and they give you a couple of reasons. And okay, my word compost was probably right in the first place, but they it boils down to, more than anything else, of the listeners get bored because their attention span is so short nowadays.
Who was telling us about this?
Look, I'm always saying, the attention span of people is just getting shorter and shorter. It's a proven fact, but
sure,
that's, they're shortening them because listeners don't want to. They get bored listening through a guitar solo. Now, I find that completely offensive myself, but they don't want to listen through a guitar solo, and that's why there's 4 measures and then 4 measures, and then it's gone and you're back into the song. Not that that's a bad thing. That's a very formulaic thing in Nashville right now as far as solos go.
Yeah.
But its inception may have come from the fact that our attention span is getting shorter, and they want to cram, of course, on commercial radio, more commercials in. So if you shorten that's the first place they want to shorten a song is the solo, because it's just words and now words from our sponsor, So, but guitar solo is being sacrificed.
There's the X. It is it's a Gibson Memphis 339.
Memphis 339. Nice.
And if you go to our webpage and you look on the front page, you're going to see that guitar. He does the quick lick on there. It's awesome.
It's cool. You better watch out that the lick doesn't get cut, soon, because people's attention spans are going to hell in a handbasket. But I just found that it's like, wow, really?
Here's the thing, and this is the beauty of guitar. And I've always said this. A guy, anybody that is a game changer or has the longevity, like, all of our heroes, those solos are songs within themselves. They are like,
absolutely.
They're just like, they've taken the melody and they've gone another direction with it. And yeah, it got crazy. I mean, you got some of your neoclassical guys, but look, it serves their purpose.
Right.
It does what they do. But when you're talking like these guys that really write, think about any of the songs that you really like that came through the 60s and the 70s. We'll just use those 2 years. Because that was where a lot of guys were really changing the games. The games were changing.
Rock and roll was developing then.
Yeah.
It was new.
And it was moving.
Right.
It was really, because guys were like, hey, there's this Hendrix guy. And they goes, there's this dude named Jimmy Page, and Tony Iommi. And, just the list goes on. But when you heard them and there's those songs, that you just think in your head and you go, man, that guitar solo fits. It's like it was just perfect.
Right.
And it's like...
And they became iconic.
Yeah. And
they totally became iconic.
Exactly. I think of like Good Times, Bad Times. If you think about that solo in there, it's just like, man, that was just so cool. It was like, how did he come up with that? What was he thinking?
I mean, it starts with just a really fast pentatonic run, but it's like, it fits, and it fits so well.
Yeah.
But I mean, and everybody disses it, and, it's one of the most snubbed solos ever, just because it exists, But I mean, even Stairway, it's iconic.
Absolutely,
it is 100%. I don't think anybody can argue that point.
War Pigs, the solo in there, that whole melody.
Oh yeah.
Down. It's just, I mean, that's you can't get rid of that.
No, I mean, and another one of my idols, Blackmore. You know, some of his solos were just
that, man. It's just crazy.
Yeah, just insane. I mean,
that guy was like in another planet and never got his due.
Yeah,
like he should have got. Like that whole band should get.
For sure.
Not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
For sure.
Who the hell ever heard of that? Okay, so the other side, I don't want to go because I'll start my thing and then everybody gets angry when I do that. But, you know, I look at this one period of time when it was not cool to play a solo, and that was in the mid 90s. And the guys, and I like this band, but when I heard these guys say this, I was like, you know what? I don't like you as much. And that was Korn. When Korn was like, oh, what do you want to do? One of those solos? But meanwhile, they owe their career to Steve Vai for inventing that Universe Ibanez that they went and got for $200 because nobody would pick it up because nobody could play a 7-string back when Vai was the only guy doing it. And then they take and make fun of the guy who was actually the inventor that gave him that guitar so they can make an entire career off of it.
Well,
it's almost like, well, there you go.
Slap in the face there.
I mean, really.
You know? Yeah.
You know, and then they talk about, well, you know, doing these solos and all. And it was like, really? Really?
You know, that instrument that you play, that guitar-like thing, got popular because of solos in large case.
Exactly.
It really did.
Because let me tell you, if they didn't, we would still be all playing Birdlands where it's almost impossible to play above the 15th fret or 12th. What is it? I forget. It's like the 14th fret or something. It's like an acoustic guitar.
Right. Yeah.
And you can't even wrap your hand around it. You know, only Nugent could do that. So, but you know, it's like, I don't know. Look, that structure has lived for what? 60 years, 70 years? Right?
Got to be going on 70.
If you think about it.
Got to be going on 70.
Really? You going to screw with that wheel? You're going to make it square? You're going to make an octagon? What are you going to do with it?
You're gonna diss the thing that is making you famous.
Yeah.
Seriously. You know, you know, you should. I'm all about, again, and this goes back to what we talked about before, where we're not addressing some things and all that. I'm all about the positive and not about the negative. So why do you got to go negative with the guitar thing? It is an instrument that has afforded you, at this point, a very nice lifestyle.
Oh my God!
And so somebody else plays a solo on it, and your music really doesn't incorporate solos. That's fine.
Isn't that great?
That's fine.
Yeah.
You know, but you don't have to diss the solo because you know what? Somebody else is making a living on playing a solo while you're making a living playing, drop D chords, you know, and
or drop A or whatever.
Right.
You know, and it's so funny because you think about that and you go, well, look, is enough room. There's a ton of room.
Totally.
You know, you don't have to start bad mouthing the other guys. There's enough room.
Right.
You've obviously shown us that. Because you guys now don't even show up on the same tour bus because you've got enough room.
Exactly. Yeah. Translate that. So
sorry.
No, it's fine. You know, and it's you mentioned. You mentioned Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,
yes,
and you mentioned like other genres of music.
Oh, can I say one thing real quick? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Just about the guitar. If anybody wants to diss a guitar, I want you to understand guitar is the greatest instrument on the planet. Why? Because you can bend notes. And most instruments, there are instruments that you can, but you're not doing it with a piano. Anybody's, well, you got a little wheel now.
Right.
Yeah, because the guitar player could do it. That's why the wheel's there.
It was invented to emulate a guitar bend.
Exactly.
Right.
There's things that you can do on a guitar that other instruments just can't do, and I'll stop now. Yeah. I just thought that was one of the things. I always wanted to say, Paul Gilbert said it one time, and I was like, that is right. Mm-hmm. That is one of the coolest things about guitar. You can bend a note.
You're right. There are other instruments, but, it's, talented horn players.
They don't sound like it.
No, they don't.
See, that's the thing. It's, a horn, a violin, any string, any of those stringed instruments, you can not bend the note, but you can go sharp or flat, right? You can do that vibrato thing that they do. But it's still just that, it's that thing.
It's the human feel of a guitar string under your finger.
When Robin Trower bends a note with that Univibe or whatever he's, Rotovibe or whatever he's got going on.
Univibe,
Yeah, that can't be done.
Right.
On a violin.
Right. Not even a violin with modeling.
Exactly. I'm sorry, you were starting with the rock and roll.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But you were mentioning other types of music, and you were mentioning Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And there was 80s kind of music too. This kind of grunge stuff that came out of the Seattle area.
Yeah, in the 90s when
mid to late 80s and then 90s.
Yeah, well, Mother Love Bone was the first band really out of Seattle.
Right, and they turned into Pearl Jam.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Soundgarden and Nirvana and all of that. But if you go back a little further than that, there was also a very big music scene, and some big people that came out of that area in the 70s, late 60s and early 70s. And our guest today is actually one of those people. He
that's cool.
Yeah, he was in this little band that came out of the Seattle and Vancouver area. They kind of migrated back and forth, but they came out of that area in the 70s, and were a couple of years ago, I believe, finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Deep Purple still not.
Deep Purple still not. That is true.
Damn it.
That's terrible. Got to change that. But anyway, our guest today, and we're going a little deep on this one, and I say that in a funny way because we're bringing in a bass player today.
Yes, well, we have had a bass player in the past, Joe Macri.
Oh, Joe! Oh my God, that was early on.
Yes.
Wow, that was very, very early on. Yeah.
Yes.
Love you, Joe.
Yes,
Love you.
Joe. Absolutely.
Yeah, good friend, unbelievable bass player.
Yes.
But
So,
we're bringing in
another bass
an
player.
iconic bass player today. Somebody that was there in the earlier days of the Seattle and Vancouver scene, and recently inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We have the founding member and bass player of Heart with us today,
cool.
Mr. Steve Fossen. So we'll be right back.
Well, this is Greg Mara, and you're listening to Amps and Axes.
All right, and we're back, and as promised, our guest for today is founding member of Heart, bassist extraordinaire, Mr. Steve Fossen. Steve, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for taking the time, man. I know you're busy, and we're coming into summer concert season, so I imagine you're going to be even busier soon.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Now, you know me. Right?
I do know you. You're Mick.
I always have a story.
Okay.
So in 1979, my sister took me to my first concert. It was at the Baltimore Civic Center, which is now called something completely different, but it was Baltimore, and it was Heart and Firefall.
Oh,
nice.
And that left the biggest impression on me ever. And my God, was it loud. I mean, it was crazy. I remember Firefall came out, they had twins on the stage.
Oh,
right?
yeah, twin reverb.
And they're the opening act, so everything's pushed forward. And, everything's covered for Heart, right? And then they open up the back line. I'm like, that's a lot of Marshalls.
Well,
were we still using those big white cabinets then?
I don't think so, because I think
my brain can't go back that far.
Yeah, I don't think so. I was actually probably backstage working hospitality at that concert, because I used to work for American Productions back in the day, and I was working hospitality back there.
That is crazy.
But yeah, we'll get to those in a minute, Steve. I really had a question about that, because that's come up a few times in conversation with people. But before we get into any hard stuff, we're gonna hit the Wayback Machine, because I always like to ask our guests, like, where were you born? Where did you come from? And what put the music bug in your brain? So give us a little history of Steve Fossen and where you came from and how you got to get into music.
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington. My parents lived, close to downtown, so I was born in the heart of the city. And then by the time I was 1, we moved out to the suburbs, and my parents had some friends that had like one of those double keyboard organs with the foot pedals and everything. And And when I was just a little kid, they'd put me on that thing, and I'd mess around, and I could always pick out melodies, and they would be amazed that I could do that. And then when I was in, I think it was 3rd or 4th grade, they started getting people interested in playing in the band, the school band and everything, and they handed me a trumpet, said, "Here, see if you can make anything, make any noise with this thing." So I took it home over the weekend, and I taught myself the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh my God! Over the weekend.
Over the weekend, and then
trumpet.
when I got back to school on Monday, they said, "Well, how did you guys do with your instruments?" And everyone was, made some squeaks and burps and stuff, and I played the Star Spangled Banner, and I floored them all.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I don't think I could learn that in a year on the trumpet. I probably couldn't get it to do anything but squeaks and burps. That's crazy.
My son had a trumpet one time.
Then I got tapped to play the Star Spangled Banner at all the, school functions and not recesses, but get-togethers for report card honors and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, all the local sporting events and
Yeah, it was quite nice.
That's funny.
But after a while, I started thinking, well, trumpet was kind of a square. Being in the band was kind of square, and I always had the bug to play guitar. And my mom had tried to get me, or I told my mom I wanted to play guitar, and she took me to a teacher, and he said, well, my hands were too small, so he started teaching me slide guitar. And
wow.
I didn't understand that was the path to playing guitar, so I wasn't very interested in slide guitar. But
that's very, very unusual, because I've never heard anyone say that a teacher attempted to start them out on slide guitar. That's really strange. It's cool, but I've never heard that before.
Well, it was the Hawaiian type slide where the guitar's on your lap and you...
Oh, kind of like a lap steel kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's unusual.
That is unusual, isn't it?
Wow, here, you can't wrap your hands around this, so we'll put it on your lap and...
Yeah.
Wow,
but,
that's
I
cool.
didn't realize at the time that it had I stuck with it, it was a very good way to learn what guitars are all about. But at the time, I just wanted to play, like the Everly Brothers or my heroes or whatever,
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
No tiny bubbles for you.
Yeah.
That's funny. So you didn't stick with it. So where did you go from there?
So there was a few years in there where I was kind of lost, trying to be a kid, trying to keep up, trying to conform and be cool, be a cool kid at school. And it doesn't take you too long before you realize that you're just chasing the wrong, that's the wrong path in life. So it was about the time, I was a huge fan of Elvis and, Ricky Nelson and the Everly Brothers, and music was like all the people in the neighborhood had like 57 Chevys. I don't know if you remember the radios in those things, but they all sounded so great. Mm-hmm. They all had the tube radios and the big speaker in front, and
right on the top of the dashboard. Yeah.
Yeah. And the bass would come booming out through the speakers, and it was just so exciting. And then, then the Beatles came along, and I remember we just moved out to a different part of the suburbs, so I didn't have any friends, so I just would listen to the radio all the time. And then I finally got a couple friends, and I used to tape my little transistor radio to my handlebars of my bike. And I was going down the road to my friend's house, and From Me to You by the Beatles came on, and I got so excited I forgot I was riding a bike, and I just about wrecked.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just incredible. And then they said the name of the band was the Beatles, and from then on, it was like something went off in my brain. I just knew I had to be a musician. So all I did was talk about music and dream about music and put records on the turntable and just listen and listen. And one day it was illegal to hitchhike out here, so I got caught hitchhiking by a policeman, and one of the deals with the punishment was one of your parents had to take you downtown and watch a movie on the evils of hitchhiking. And on the way home, my dad said, "Hey, I know you've been talking about getting, playing the bass for a while here. Do you want to stop at the music store and rent a bass and see how you like it?" And I said, "Of course I do."
Wow.
And so I rented a little bass. It was an Orlando bass, which is kind of like a knockoff of a Precision, and a Supro amp with a 15. And it was all tube amp.
Wow.
And it really sounded nice. And from that day forward, I mean, it was hard to pry that thing out of my hands. And
That's
after
a cool
the
little rig, man.
original 3-month rental agreement was up, if you got another bass right away, they applied that money to the new bass. So I got a Hagstrom and a different amp, but I stuck with tubes.
Nice.
And then I got myself in a band and just started playing wherever I could.
That was cool. That first amp was probably a Thunderbolt,
Yeah, it probably was. Yep.
Yeah.
Because Randy, the guitar player in our band now, he's got one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's actually going to be on soon. So,
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I've got him lined up too. So
Good.
that's cool. And I imagine that led to some guitar or basement bands eventually with some of your high school buds or even grammar school buds.
Yeah, and here's another interesting thing. My dad said, "Okay, well, you're going to have to get a job to pay for this." So I said, "Sure, no problem, Dad." So I went down to the local grocery store, and they put me in charge of cleaning up the meat market every day after the butchers were done. And so I was busy doing that and paying my bills and everything. And then one day my dad stopped into the grocery store, and then he came home, and I wasn't there. So he came, when he got back home, he said, "Hey, Steve, I stopped by the grocery store, and he said, you quit." And I said, "Yeah, I quit, Dad. I'm making way more money playing music than I was cleaning up the meat market."
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. We had a band called Benedict Arnold and the Traders, and we did, we did all the high school dances and fraternities and all that kind of stuff. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool. Great.
So as a bass player, did you find it easier to get gigs because bass players are not as plentiful as guitar players?
I don't know. Because I was always the guy that was putting band together. So
wow.
I always made sure I had a job. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
it's my band, and I'm playing bass.
I understand that is the case, but I just love the bass so much because my hero was, of course, Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And I loved Bill Wyman, and then when Zeppelin came out, I loved John Paul Jones.
Which is so funny because 3 very underrated bass players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, they look at Paul and they look at the songwriter, but if you listen to some of that stuff, it's like, oh my God, that guy was moving.
He doesn't play like most normal bass players. His lines, his runs are not structured like a normal bass player would think to structure. That's what I always recognize when I hear his stuff. It's like, I mean, and I've been corrected on this, and I think it was Joe Mack that corrected me on this. I think it was Joe Macri, because I always thought Paul played like a guitar player would play bass, and for some reason, and I think it was Mac, corrected me on that, almost like that was an insult to the way he actually did structure his bass lines,
I think it was Joe. Yeah,
I stand corrected, but I knew he was always different.
But then you got Wyman, who's another one that's like doing a lot underneath there, and then, of course John Paul Jones was like, that guy. Some of those bass lines on some of those Zeppelin albums is amazing.
Oh yeah,
yeah. He's probably one of the best, purest electric bass players ever.
Yeah.
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 And he studied the right people. When he was growing up, he studied Mingus, so he had a very good understanding of what to do and how to do it and when to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably met. Have you met all three?
I've met Wyman and John Paul Jones, but not Paul McCartney.
Yeah. See that?
Yes.
So because when you talk to a guy that was in a band like this during those times,
right?
Those guys were just out there doing
playing
the same
music,
thing.
right? Exactly. Now they've all become icons,
Yeah,
including
so cool,
Steve.
man.
But I mean, another one for me is.
It was a lot of it had to do with their playing too, but a lot of it was their tone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then come to find out years later that Keith actually played quite a few bass lines in the Stones too, but at the time I thought it was Bill. So.
Well, Bill had to wind up recreating them anyway, So.
Yeah, he sure did.
I mean, for me, another one was Pappalardi.
Yep.
Felix.
He played those Gibson basses with the big monstrous low end.
Yeah.
And then
EBOs and EB3s.
And then Entwistle would be another big one out of those.
Oh, Entwistle too. Yeah, he really, really pioneered, especially the tone.
Yeah.
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 And I read Pete Townsend's biography, and he talked about Entwistle a lot in there, and how he said that Entwistle really applied himself, and in between each album he would improve a lot because he worked on it so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he had to, because usually most of the other equipment was destroyed, and he was the only guy still playing at the end of the night.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, so let's get back. Where do we live? We left off at Benedict Arnold and the Traders, I think.
Benedict Arnold and the Traders, and we were a very popular band, and but how bands go, one thing leads to another, and people start going their own ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was in another band with a guy called Don, by the name of Don Wilhelm, and he's a really good singer, guitar player, organ player. And that lasted for a summer. And then in the fall, when Roger and I got back to school, we started talking a lot about, trying to, because we both had our instruments for about 2 years then. We hadn't played together before, but.
Now you're speaking of Roger Fisher.
Yeah, Roger Fisher. Yeah.
Okay.
And we were in my parents' downstairs office, and we started talking. And we said, "Hey, you call Don Wilhelm, and he'll call Ray Schaefer, his friend that's a drummer, and we'll see if we can put together a band, and we'll call it the Army." And I said, "Sure, let's do it." And we shook on it. So that's how the Army started, and then the Army turned into Whiteheart, and then we eventually dropped the White and just became Heart.
And you were Heart before the Wilson sisters joined, or were asked to join. Yeah, there was Heart before Ann and Nancy even joined.
Wow.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at some, I guess maybe Wikipedia here. The Army was 1967.
67 to 68 was the Army, and then 68 to 69 was Whiteheart. And then 69 to 71, I think we were Heart. And then not Nancy, but Ann joined as a lead singer. And we changed the name altogether to Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
And and Raj and I we had accumulated some debt, so we used Hocus Pocus as a means to get out of debt. And when Hocus Pocus was over, Ann, Roger, and I immigrated to Vancouver, British Columbia, because in Seattle, the Boeing company had been laying off a lot of people, and it was the end of the Vietnam War, and the economy around here was really bad. But in Vancouver, it was booming. So we said, well, if we want to, keep keep this music thing going, we got to go where the money is. So we went up there. And we hired a couple of Canadians, a drummer and a keyboard player, and we changed the name back to Heart. And then it took, we worked on the set list for about 3 months during the summer, and then in the fall we started playing, and it was like 6 months later we were one of the top bands in Vancouver.
Wow.
And that was, I guess that was pre-first album, right?
Oh yeah, way before the first album. So we played in Vancouver for about 3 years, and Rolf Henneman, he was an engineer at Mushroom Can-Base Studios. He heard us, and then he dragged Mike Flicker out to see us. You know who Mike Flicker is, right?
He was, I believe, the producer on.
Yeah, he
on
produced
Dreamboat, right?
Rainbow Danny and
Yeah.
Magazine and Little Queen and Dog and Butterfly.
Yeah.
And
It's a good idea bringing him out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then we did a few demos for him. We did a couple. At first, we did a couple of cover songs, and they turned out okay. And they were really interested in just signing Ann, and much to her credit, she said, "No, it's either the whole band or nothing." So they.
Wow.
Yeah, were those covers Zeppelin covers, perhaps? Because it was kind of a heavy Zeppelin band for a while, right? Or heavily influenced.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we were not famous for our Zeppelin. We had a big 20-minute Zeppelin medley that we did, and then we throughout the night we did like Kashmir, Stairway to Heaven, and big showcase tunes.
Wow.
But we also played a lot of Yes and Deep Purple, and we did the whole gamut of what was going on back in those days.
Yeah, Blackmore is one of my tone icons for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was a big hero for Raj too.
Oh, nice. So
I have a Richie Blackmore story.
Oh, great.
So the Heart was opening up for Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, right? And I think we were in Chicago or someplace like that anyway, and it was the first night that we met them and we're opening up for them, and so we're they did their sound check and we're kind of getting our stuff ready, and the keyboard player comes out to Howard and I, because we used to play on the stage right, and he said, "Hey, come here, you guys, I want to show you my keyboards." And he showed us the keyboards, and he goes, "How do you like them?" It was a pretty big keyboard setup, lots. It was L. There was a big one up front, and then there was an L, a couple of keyboards on the side, and a couple of tiers and everything. We said, "Yeah, it looks great." He says, "Good, because it's not moving an inch." So Howard and I had to pile our gear, around his keyboard setup.
You like it? Good. It's staying right here.
Yeah, that's right. It was, the joys of being an opening band, but we put up with it. We had about a foot between the keyboards and the edge of the stage, so we had to stand kind of still all night.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it was.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Wow.
Meantime, Richie's got the entire stage left when he comes on, and the keyboard player's taking up the entire stage right. And these guys got to kind of squeeze between. Everything. That is fun. Now, with the keyboard player, was that still Lord? Was he using Lord, or was it somebody else? Do you know?
To tell you the truth, I don't remember, and I probably would have remembered had he been a nice guy, but he said that to me, and it was just flabbergasting to me because Heart was never like that to opening acts, to my knowledge.
Yeah, it's like, hey guys, come here, I want to show you something. Almost like baiting you, and then just lays this on you, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Sure thing, jerk.
So how long did you open for them?
It wasn't a long time. We did it was maybe 2-3 weeks at the most. Okay.
Long enough to knock them at a number one on the charts.
Well, Hart went on to do
A lot more than Rainbow.
Stuff. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And I don't think that Deep Purple even is in the Hall of Fame yet either.
No, they're not.
We had that discussion.
That's so funny you brought that up because we just, we have a host conversation before we bring in our guest, and we just touched base on the fact that you guys are and they're not.
Yeah, yeah, because it was weird because we did like 4 or 5 of their hits back in the day as part of our club show that we did.
Wow.
Man, we used to play like 4 or 5 sets a night. 4 to 5 to 6 nights a week.
Oh.
That's the way it was back then.
Yeah.
The good old days.
Yeah, it was cool because you could
make a living playing music.
Yeah, if you were playing at a place for 4 nights in a row, by the time you got to Friday night, everything was dialed in. So when people walked in the door, you could just blow them away.
Yeah. So back at that time, let's touch base on a little bit of gear. What were you playing back then? What was your gear? What was your rig like?
Well, I always I had a 68 P bass that I had during that time, and I had a 65 J bass and a 73 Rickenbacker, and that was my arsenal back then. Mm-hmm. I had a 400 PS. You know what that is? Fender 400 PS.
That's the big Fender bass amp. Yeah, it was
larger,
kind of physically larger than an SVT.
Yeah. It was their answer to an SVT.
Yes.
So I used that to drive 415s. And then I had 2 dual Showmans, each driving a 412 cabinet.
Holy crap.
Nice.
So wait a minute, that 400 was 400 watts, right?
Yeah.
So there was 16 power tubes, correct? It'd be a quartet for each 100.
I don't know.
Oh, no, I think it was
12?
4 or 8, maybe.
Yeah,
6 or 8.
Yeah, I have to look at the schematic, but it wasn't what you think, but it was... Yeah, it was a massive beast.
Yeah.
It really was.
What did it weigh, like 200 pounds?
Oh, my God.
Oh, no, it's around 100.
Yeah, the iron in there is just ridiculous.
Well,
it was physically
no
larger.
heavier or lighter than an SVT.
Right.
Did it have a ground plug?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it sure did.
Remember, that'd be dancing on that time when they weren't.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, touch the bass strings to the mic and see if you get a spark. And, we all been there.
Yeah, and also, I was one of the first people that I know of that did this, but I had an Altec high-frequency horn that I used with one of the 15s to get a little more edge out of the high end.
Oh, nice.
And up until that time, bass was only out of paper speakers, never a tweeter.
Yeah, so he was doing the 15s and the 12s and the horn. It's
kind of a full range sound.
Totally.
Yeah. And I used the Rickenbacker had that Ricco sound, which is stereo basically. So I'd put the big treble pickup through the 12s, and then have the bass pickup going through the 15s. Is pretty nice.
Yeah, so that's
cool.
400 and the 2 joules. So that's 600, about almost 600 watts.
That'll shake you.
Well, back then, the PAs didn't carry. The PAs were mainly for vocal and drums, and the guitar and the bass had to kind of were on their own.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why they, the backlines were so big. Now they're big for just for show.
But, just for show. Yeah.
Yeah, back then you had to really push it from the stage and stand in front of it.
Oh.
Yeah, that I love the sound of bass. I used to just stand and anchor my feet, and I could just feel the bass just coming up through the floor, through my feet, up through my legs. It was really cool.
Awesome.
That is so cool.
That is great.
Now let's throw a fractal, and you got in-ears. It doesn't do anything.
We'll get to what he's using now. We'll see. But all right, so that was I guess that was just a little right around the time leading up to, I guess, Dreamboat Annie for a few years, right?
And that's one thing that Flickr really enjoyed about my setup is that I had all these different amps and places to mic. You could mic the Altec horn, you could mic the 15s, you could mic the 12s. So you had a lot of different places to choose from. So that's why all the sounds are so different on Dreamboat Annie.
Wow, so you actually used all of that in the studio as well.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. And speaking of, let's get into studio, because when Dreamboat Andy came out, 76-ish, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
It was. I had just moved from Jersey to Maryland here.
Okay.
And the big rock station here, WKTK, was the first place that I heard Heart. And I ran out and I grabbed the album, grabbed the vinyl, and I used to drive back and forth to Jersey like every week or every other week just to go see my friends and hang out and come back, on Sunday night. I brought the album up there, and it hadn't hit the North Jersey, New York market yet.
Wow.
So I brought this album up, and everybody's going, "What is this?" I've never heard anything like it.
That's cool, man.
And the thing about it was the sound of the album. Not only, it was great songs and great musicianship and killer vocals and everything else, but the sound of the album was so warm. And, the story was that it was done in an all-tube studio. So I got to ask you firsthand, how was that album done?
It was done in an all-tube studio. They had I can't remember what exactly the make and model of the board was, but it was all-tube.
Wow, there you go.
And of course, all my bass rig was all tube at the same time too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I had a 59P bass, which I don't know if you know anything about P basses. The 59s are really known for their aggressive, warm tone.
Mm-hmm.
Aggressive.
Wait a minute, I did read something about this. You had flat wounds on there.
Flat wounds for Dreamboat Annie, yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
On the bass.
Yeah, I used flat wounds on my P bass, and I had round wounds on my jazz bass and my Rickenbacker.
Nice.
Well, those flat wounds would help when you're playing 4 hours a night.
Well, actually, once your fingers get used to the round wounds, I mean, they just as part of my fun last night, I got to play bass at my friend's house, and he has flat wounds on his bass, and it was so funny because I was just slipping all over the place. I couldn't, it was so slick. I would go slide right by the note.
Okay, wait. How many margaritas?
Oh, geez, yeah. I started off with a Jager bomb, and then I had two margaritas, and we tried. Have you guys ever heard of Deschutes Brewery out there?
No.
Well, they're from Bend, Oregon, and Bend, Oregon is kind of the mecca of that started the craft brewing craze,
microbrew kind of thing. Wow.
And they had a brand new IPA, and there's one in my fridge right now. It's called a Pine Drops IPA. Man, I had one of those too, so it was really good.
Nice. So
and then I decided, then we ate too, so I decided to knock it off because I don't like to go to sleep when I'm still high from alcohol. So we jammed for about an hour and had a lot of fun, and then came home.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice way to spend an evening with friends. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go back to the studio. You get into the studio and you're recording this. How long? Do you remember how long it took you to record that first album?
We started. Parts of the album were recorded like in the spring of '75, but it's mostly done during the summer and fall, leading up to of 1975, because we were touring and playing, not touring, but playing a lot, because in order to make a living, we had to keep playing. We just couldn't stop paying our bills.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to intersperse recording with, we'd work for 2 weeks, make some money, and then we'd have a couple weeks off or maybe a week, and then do the recording, and then get back to work. And so it took us, a good 6 months. We wrapped it up probably in the fall of '75.
Cool.
And maybe we did some mixing when we got back, because we had a big bunch of stuff to do, and then I think we finished the mixing maybe in the end of '75 and the beginning of '76, because I know that once I think we released it on February 14th of 1976.
Wow. Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day, yeah.
But it was interesting, the mixing. of course, it was done with 2-inch tape and the mastering and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were mixing, we would mix like 30 seconds of it at a time. And everybody had a fader or an effect to put on, or an EQ to move. So we all gathered around this little desk that was all, the tube desk I was talking about.
It's what, 16 channel probably?
Yeah, 16 channel.
I mean, that's literally all hands on deck. Truly.
And oddly enough, the volume knobs were like about 2.5 or 3 inches across, round knobs.
Yeah.
Just great, big, gigantic ones. But and Flicker, he was in total control of everything, and he knew he was like God to us back then. Everything had to be filtered through Mike Flicker, and he had a set of ears, I'll tell you.
Obviously.
Yeah. So we mix it at 30 seconds at a time, and then we'd have Rolf. He'd go. We called him the surgeon, because then he'd have to splice it together.
Wow.
And we'd listen to it, make sure that we didn't hear anything, any weird sonic moves or anything. So that's how it was mixed.
That's just crazy. I mean, can you imagine that nowadays with all the automation we have, to actually sit there with literally all these people holding on to knobs and twisting knobs at 30-second clips? Can you imagine?
Do you know
trying
what
to do
I
an album that way?
Do you know what I do now? I got a line that runs across the screen. It's the volume, and I just click on another spot, pull it down. There's your fade.
Absolutely,
there you go, you're good.
Absolutely.
Here's the raise this up. Wow.
It's,
I mean but see, here's the thing. As hard as they try, and I mean as hard as they try, they can't reproduce that original deal. There's just all the plugins and all the tube preamps. You can throw as much crap as you want at it. That whole chemistry is impossible to recreate at this point. Maybe sometime when we're all gone, they may have that technology. Then again, who knows if they'd even want to listen to it then. But you know what I mean, is now, to hear that though, that is, there's your answer, man.
That's crazy.
And it was all, it ended up having such an organic feel.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
And, I don't know. And because it was 16 track, like say a vocal track would be going along, well then it would turn into the lead guitar track. The same track would turn into the lead guitar track.
Wow.
And then a little while later it would turn into the cowbell track or whatever, So the EQ had to be totally changed for the new instrument that was coming along in 30 seconds.
Wow.
That is wild.
Yeah. I guess, that saves the amount of overdubs that you actually have to do,
and all the bouncing,
the bounce downs that you have to do. Yeah, not overdubs of it, but
the bouncing, because that, what they say with Bohemian Rhapsody, they said they bounced it so many times that somebody looked at the tape and said all the silver's gone, because he was like getting ready to do another thing, and they said it would have wiped it off.
Wow,
the head had just taken all the silver right off the back.
Every time it passes, you lose a little bit.
Yeah.
Every time it passes.
Yeah, that's true. So we tried to avoid that. Flicker was totally aware of that. So
that's really cool.
He kept playing the masters and the 2-inch down to a minimum amount of times to get it right.
Did I ask you what the name of the studio was?
It was called Canbase.
Canbase.
CAN-BASE. Canbase, and but we called it Mushroom Studios.
I'm sure there's a story there.
Well, that was the name of the record company, Mushroom
Oh, that's
Records.
right, Mushroom Records. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a story there. But anyway.
Yeah, and it was, Cherry Jacks recorded there. And they had some other hits with some other artists. And we were in there, and, they kept telling us, hey, you're going to have this is going to be huge. This is going to be so great. You guys are going to be the next big thing. And we all like, yeah, right. Because we were thinking, if we could sell enough records to pay back the record company and then be allowed to record another album, we thought we were doing well.
You said pay back the record company. You obviously had gotten signed at that point.
Yeah, they were. It was a spec deal where they they put up the money for the recording of the album and all the artwork and everything else, and then part of the deal was the first proceeds from the album would pay them back, and then we'd start getting paid.
Right, right. Do you remember? Do you want to say? Do you remember what the spec deal was?
Oh, it was 50-50. The record company got 50, and we got 50.
No, I meant what they put up, but because it's.
Oh, I do remember, and oddly enough, there was quite a bit of studio time in there, and because Flicker was very efficient, and he knew what he wanted, and he knew how to get it out of people, and it was very efficient, and we had we hired Vancouver Symphony Orchestra people to come in and do the strings, and we had all this kind of stuff, and the final bill, I think, for the recording the album, the artwork, and everything was right around $35,000.
Wow,
$35,000. Holy mackerel!
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a good return on investment.
Yeah, try to get your foot in the door for $35,000 at a studio nowadays. Geez.
Yeah,
sure. But I mean, they're not even writing deals anymore like that. It's the whole thing has changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when.
Yeah, I could put Pro Tools HD. I could have it at my house.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You
could have it on your tour bus.
That's right.
I remember when friends of mine around here got a deal back in the 80s, and it was for substantially more than that, and the upfront was substantially more than that.
Sure.
But the payback was just about all the upfront that there was.
Yeah.
So but nobody's even signing people like that anymore.
No.
It's completely different.
It's totally different.
Now it's all
a whole different world.
What is it called now? It's called distribution deals, right? Isn't that what it is? They'll distribute it for you. Mm-hmm. You do all the work. You get all that taken care of. We'll push the album,
and then we'll take half your money for the sales.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad that the record companies, maybe they had a little bit of, maybe they were a tad arrogant, thinking that they were the only game in town, and then people figured out how to get music, sidestep them and everything.
Sure.
And then by the time they woke up, they were kind of behind the eight ball, and they've never really gotten back to their former luster yet.
Yeah, it's hard to play catch up, man, and they just did not want to. They didn't want to recognize that they had to. There was something coming up that they had to get in front of.
Well, I think part of the problem is just like he said, they were behind the eight ball. And they were probably a lot of eight balls going on with those guys, and they didn't realize that the record industry was disappearing.
For sure. It's the ivory tower thing.
Exactly.
But
yeah, well, and then when the switchover was between vinyl and to CDs.
Yeah.
Well, they sold us a bill of goods saying that the CDs they sounded better and they were more convenient, so you're going to pay more for them. Well, they were actually cheaper to produce than vinyl.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, the press them was nothing because they just burned them.
Right. Press it, you burn it.
Yeah.
But everybody felt like, oh, this new technology is so great. It must be worth more. So they ended up paying, you go from a $10 album and all of a sudden you're paying $15-$20 for a CD. And
yep. Yeah, it's true. And the funny part was the recordings that went on the first ones were horrible because they hadn't realized that if you just took what was there and put it on, it sounded horrible. It didn't sound right. Yeah. They had to warm it back up. They had to figure out a way to get it, because when you went digital, it just got ugly.
Yeah, it was all the converters back then were,
they were all, 8-bit?
Yeah, something
they were probably
like
something really low. They were, did not have the bandwidth that they have
weren't
now.
even what MP3 crap is now,
No, they were still at 44 kilohertz with the wave files, but it was the bit rate that they actually put it on. And it would get a little sterile, so you had to kind of figure out a way to warm it up. But by then, the bit rate was getting larger because now they're up to 96 kilobits. Yeah, and that's crazy.
Yeah.
But
so anyway,
I'm sorry.
We're back to the studio. This is recorded and it's released, and you start going out on tour to support the album. which is what everybody used to do.
And the tour basically started in March, and I think the first thing we did was we opened up for the Bee Gees around British Columbia. We did about a week or two with them.
Wow.
And that was, I mean, the Bee Gees they're so good, and they had such great fans, and they loved us too, so it was really a great matchup.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was really fun. And then we just went out and started just touring like crazy. And what Mushroom Records would do was they'd get us airplay in a certain part of the country.
Okay.
And then they would send us there. And then once we played, and people heard us on the radio, and then they saw us, then the record sales would pick up. So we'd be big in a certain area of the country, but people in another area hadn't even heard of us yet. It wasn't like it went everywhere at the same time. But by the time we were done with the tour in 1976, we'd pretty much gotten everywhere in America.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
To hear that today.
Right. Right.
Today it releases on iTunes for the entire world.
And it's and over the world.
Yeah.
Seconds.
Meanwhile, they had to hit the towns to get the plays up.
Yeah, people picking up phones going, "Hey, we got this band, can we get them played on your station?" And
that is so
then
wild.
we'll send the band in, to tour that area. Yeah.
Literally, like he was one of the pioneers. They were like the pioneers of that whole system of how that worked.
Yeah, and then like radio stations do this to this day too. They would pit two new bands against each other and to see which one got the most phone calls and.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Which and we Magic Man would win quite a few of those contests, and then once we won the contest, then they'd try to send the band there.
Wow.
So I have another interesting story about the early days.
Sure.
We were the album was finished. We'd done our tour with the Bee Gees, and but we still, in order to make money, we still needed to play clubs. So we got hired by a club in Calgary. I think it was called the Inferno. And, we pulled in on a Monday night and, set up and did our thing. And we just didn't, something about the club and the club owner and stuff, it just didn't jive with our band. And I don't know if he didn't understand us and we didn't understand him, but things just weren't working out. So by Thursday night, it was pretty tense. And after we got done on Thursday night, the club owner said, "Hey, guys, it's just not working. So I'm gonna hire another band for the weekend, and you guys can, I'll pay you for the 4 days, and you guys can just,
wow,
you're fired, basically." Yeah. So we're like, oh my gosh, because we thought we were pretty good, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tucked our tail between our leg, and we go back to the hotel, and we're all sad and everything. And we get a phone call from Shelley Siegel. He was the main guy at Mushroom Records. He says, "Is there any way you can get out of your gig this weekend?" And we went, "As a matter of fact," he said, "because I can get you to open up for Rod Stewart and the Faces in Montreal and Toronto."
Oh, wow.
Oh, there you go.
But you guys have to leave right now to get there, like it was a Saturday, Sunday night or something like that.
At this point, I picture a phone hanging from the coil cable on the wall.
And the door swinging shut.
Exactly.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, you had to phone the hotel with, all the...
Wow.
Flashing buttons I don't know. I was just in Vegas a couple weeks ago, and I tried to use the phone, the landline there. You can't even get the front desk hardly.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
You got to do it through the television now.
Yeah. So we jumped on a train, one of those scenic cruisers, and we went from Calgary to Montreal. Was the first night with the Faces, and the rest is history.
Wow. Everything happens for a reason.
That is so cool.
Yeah. Well, and it was really odd because, we played the Montreal, I don't know if it's called the Forum but anyway, so they're bigger, hockey arena type gig. And of course we thought, oh, the Faces, Rod Stewart, they're going to sell the place out, which is great because we'll get in front of a big crowd. So we walk out on stage and we look up, and it's just, full of people. And we're just like, oh, let's see. I think we started off with like Magic Man or something like that. And when we got done, the place just roared with approval. And we all looked at each other like, holy moly, what's going on here?
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. Really, really cool. I'll never forget that moment.
And you both will be able to attest to this. Back then, it's different now. Back then, the opening act, the place was pretty packed. You go now and the opening act, and there's like six, if it's like, say, if it's 10,000 seater, there's like, 4,000 people. Mm-hmm. There's like, it's only 40% filled. And then, because they give the showtime, a lot of times they'll tell you exactly when the headlining is coming on.
For sure.
But back then, I remember, because like when Firefall opened up for you guys, the place was packed.
Oh, yeah. All the time. It's like they give you a show starting time. And that's when you were supposed to be there, and now it's like...
Well, and plus, the mentality back then was, you mean I can go see Heart, but I can see another band too?
Right, on the same ticket?
For $7?
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Used to complain about that.
Nowadays, it's like the opening act is almost annoying to some people,
Yeah, that's just... And I don't know how it was back then, but the opening act... you don't get full sound. You don't get full lights. You don't get full anything. That is reserved for the headliner.
Yeah. Well,
So.
I tell you what, I remember that show like it was yesterday.
Cool.
And I just remember how loud it was, but it was so cool. For the first time in my life, seeing people play at that level.
Now, speaking of loud, I got to get to some gear, but that brings me to a question. You said you hopped on a train. What about your gear? Were you guys did you hump your own gear on the train to get to where you needed to go?
Well, I think we've shoved all the gear in a truck, and we sent the roadies off, to do the Trans Canada Drive, and we got to do the scenic cruiser.
Nice.
Wow.
Road cruise, got to get one.
But it was a fascinating trip. Going to the Rockies. The Canadian Rockies, we would stand in between the trains where you can, we get the fresh air, and it was nice. So it was, you could look out and look down cliffs, thousands of feet down to the river below,
Awesome.
What happened to those days? Now you stand between the trains and you can't see anything because it's sealed.
Train takes too long nowadays, man. Nobody's got the time anymore.
That's true, I guess.
Everybody's in a hurry to get somewhere and wait. God. So, okay, let's talk a little gear back in that era, because I got to get to the white things. But what were you using then?
Still my same setup. I kept my 400 PS and the Showman's going as long as I could, and then when we started doing all the opening shows for a lot of people, Flickr talked me into getting something a little more, easy to get around. So I ended up getting one of the first model GKs that came out.
Oh, wow.
Really?
And that was quite a switch to go from tubes to solid state. But GK, it sounded pretty good, really. And if you listen to Magazine, I used the GK on Heartless and Devil's Light and Magazine, and it didn't sound too bad.
I didn't know that company was that old.
I was just going to say, I didn't realize that they had come out that early on.
Yeah, it was one of the very first models. And
Gallion Kruger.
I was happy with it. I'm sorry I got rid of it in a way.
Interesting. Interesting.
That's what Flea uses.
GKs?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a totally different animal now.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
So we, you're doing the openers. About what time did you guys start headlining?
Well, we opened up all during 1976, and then the end of the year we ended up going to Europe and opening up for Nazareth all throughout free Europe.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
And we got back, and one of the first things we did when we got back was record. After Christmas was over and everything, we recorded Little Queen.
Mm-hmm.
which took, a good 3 months, and then we started touring again, and we were a little more in the headlining arena by then.
Yeah. Did you do Little Queen at the same studio, or move on?
No, actually, Little Queen was done at here in Seattle at K. Smith Studios, which is downtown, and because we had that falling out with Mushroom, and their whole, and so obviously we couldn't continue recording in their studio.
Yeah. So you're back out and starting to headline. And I remember seeing probably, 77, 78, somewhere around there. I think it was probably Midnight Special that you guys were on. And as Mick was alluding to before, you alluded to when Mick said he saw you, there was a very large wall of white cabinets behind you.
Yeah.
What were they?
Okay, we all made them.
Really?
They were these big fiberglass boxes, and they were kind of divided up into compartments. I think there was either 3 or 4 different levels, maybe 3 for the bass and 4 for the guitars, because the bass speakers were bigger. And they had kind of a cone-shaped. The white part was a cone-shaped kind of projection, kind of like the Voice of the Theater projection type baffle. And they weren't the best sounding cabinets. They were designed more for the look of the stage, but they did make a very impressive background for what we were doing.
So they were actually homemade, home designed cabinets. It's really funny because I don't know who I was speaking to at one point. I don't think it was on the show. It was something else, but there was another company, and I cannot remember their name, that had a very similar cabinet at that point. And I pointed this video out to him, and he didn't think that they were theirs, but they looked really similar. And I said, well, I really don't know what they are. I remember seeing them, And the whole rig behind the band was very concave. It wasn't flat. It was actually almost, it was concave, for lack of a better word. It had an arch to it from bottom to top.
Yeah, the cabinets were kind of arched so that the top speaker and the bottom speaker were even, and then the two in the middle were sunk in a little bit.
Yeah. It was like a concave mirror, but it was cabinets.
I'm trying to find it on the internet. I've got some old pictures of the band, but I'm not seeing anything behind them.
It's pretty cool.
Oddly enough, the other night I fell asleep on the couch, and when I woke up, a commercial for Midnight Special was on, and they, of course, showed a couple clips of our segment.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then so that inspired me to go to YouTube, and you can, if you call up, see what is it, Crazy on You for the Midnight Special, it might be on YouTube. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that might have been the one I saw there. I think there's a couple on there, but it's pretty cool. It's very impressive looking, and
Speaking of which, we just uploaded our version of Barracuda onto YouTube.
Oh.
So that's just come up in the last few days. So.
Oh, I do have a picture.
We had to go. You have to go through a certain amount of licensing and permissions to get to legally put stuff on YouTube. So
now our version, meaning
Heart by Heart's version.
Heart by Heart, right? Okay, which is the band that Steve is in now. With hey man, what's it like to be playing with Mike again?
Oh, I love Mike. I love Mike. We've been friends for 40 years, and we've there's a special bond that like Howard and Mike and I that have that from the days when we were recording the album up to the time when we first did our touring out there, and then the day we found out we had a gold record in Canada, and then the day we found out we were platinum in America, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, all these experiences we've all had together, and Mike is just a fantastic musician. He's a fantastic person, and he's such an inspiration because he's so dedicated, and he just, everybody that plays him, he brings them up. You know, he's really good.
That's nice. Yeah, because I mean, there is something about a bass player and a drummer, a rhythm section that has played together for years. You know, I know you guys probably, there was a time where you hadn't played together, but I mean, just, you know, you kind of grew up playing together, and that really, it probably, hopefully, felt like home again when you finally got back together, because there's really just something when a bass player and a drummer lock, man, it's just so good.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it was. And then, you know, we both work at it very hard, and like during rehearsals, we were still, our band is, everybody's a real pro musician in our band, but we still rehearse 2 times a week.
Oh, really? Wow.
That's cool.
And we'll sit down at rehearsal and we'll play a song that we've played a million times before, but then we'll stop and we'll go, can we play this one section here a little bit and tighten it up a little bit? And everybody gets on board. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Now, I have to ask a question.
Okay.
Because I did watch...
You're allowed.
Thank you. I did watch the Behind the Music of Heart.
Okay.
And I take it you were at the show where, was it Roger that threw the guitar when he left? I guess because it was like, I guess there was some stuff going on with either, was it Ann?
Little tension in the band, little tension.
Yeah.
Well, Roger and Nancy had broken up. And Raj was acting out a little bit, so.
There's footage of that.
Oh, yeah.
He whips a Stratocaster across the stage. He was trying to take her out with it, wasn't he?
No, I think he was just trying to break it, but instead of it breaking, I think it slipped out of his hand and went flying.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like, whoa, that thing.
Oops.
That thing just went swinging across the stage. What do you?
Yeah, it was. You can imagine how a guy would feel if if you had a relationship in the band and then it broke up, and you're supposed to still be on stage with these people, and you know what I mean?
That's always tough.
So it was difficult for Raj, and I don't think he ever really rebounded from that, because after that we tried to record, do some more recording, and then Raj was just kind of in his own world after that.
Wow.
And we couldn't really get anything done because one day he would have a part for a song, and then the next day it'd be totally different. So, and we couldn't really depend on what he was going to be playing at any given time.
Wow.
Yeah, just lost his
head.
Yeah,
mine wasn't all into the music all the time. Wow.
Yeah, he was understandably hurt.
Oh,
but,
sure.
But, come to find out that, he wasn't exactly, not part of the reason why they split up.
There's always 3 sides to every story.
Exactly.
That's right.
For sure. What was I going to ask you? Before I get into like what your rig is now, were you, the big white cabinets, were you driving them with your GK or multiple GKs at that point? And do you remember what the guitar rigs possibly were?
Well, yeah, I was driving it with the GK for a while, and they had put, I think 4 15s and a couple of 12s were my designated cabinet, I think. Mm-hmm. I can't remember exactly, because by that time, it was, hey, you're going to use this, and it didn't really compare to the sonic wonderment I had with the rig I had before with all the 15s and 12s and stuff, but it worked for what we were doing, and to get to the next level, it was best to cooperate. So, and then so the GK was fine, but we all switched to Music Man heads after a while. So the guitar players were using Music Man, the bigger heads with the reverb, and then I had the smaller heads there just for bass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably guitar heads probably would have been like HD 130s or something,
Yeah, I think they were all HD 130s, and I had like maybe two for what I was driving, and then each guitar player probably had one.
Yeah, cool.
That's wild.
Yeah, a lot of people. I mean, I think Clapton was using Music Man for a while, and they're big and loud. Probably great for bass, and I'm not quite sure how the guitar players got those good tones out of them because I never could. I don't know. Solid state front end.
Studios, everybody used their own personal amps that they'd been using for years.
Cool.
So I know Howard had and I'm sure he still has it too. Is an ancient 410 Bassman.
Ah.
The tweed one. His was all beat up and everything, but that's what he recorded Dreamboat Annie with.
Oh, nice.
I've met Howard several times.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's been around here.
Yeah. And the one time was at one of the PRS things, and he said, "I guess these guys are getting paid by the note."
Lots of notes floating around. Huh?
A little bit,
yeah.
Lots. Yeah.
Do you remember what Roger was using?
Raj, he was one of those people that was constantly experimenting, so it's hard to keep track of it. And but I think his best sounds he had Marshalls and 412s and stuff like that.
Nice.
Especially in the studio. And Raj came up with some really good tones, and he and Howard were both, they're deceptively clean for playing rock, But that's one thing we discovered when we were putting together Heart by Heart, is that the guitar parts, although they give the impression that they're all raunchy and distorted, they're not really.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the overdrive that everybody tries to put on everything. I mean, that's like AC/DC.
Exactly.
They're really not that dirty at all.
Not at all.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And it's very deceptive.
It's the ultimate crunch, but there's not a lot of dirt there. And I mean, and you have to be a good player to pull that off. You really do. You have to. Yeah,
you do.
It's
and you have to have a good ear too.
Yeah.
To recognize when you're overdriving it, because an overdriven sound makes the music sound, you don't get the right feel for what's going on.
Right. And you lose articulation, and
that
some
compression.
of what you want to put out there is lost. And
the compression that takes place, right? Isn't that what happens?
Sure.
Yeah. So everything kind of just starts to run together.
Yeah. You run out of dynamics and articulation, and but
which for some music, that's exactly what they're after, which is good, But for heart music then and now with Heart by Heart, we're trying to recreate what was going on back then, and so
and you do it extremely well. I've seen the band at least a couple times.
Yeah.
And we spoke last time you guys were in town, and guy, close your eyes.
Yeah.
It's
That's
ridiculous.
Cool.
It's ridiculous, man.
So we have a lot of fun.
Good. What's the rig nowadays?
Well, I use a vintage Ampeg SVT, and I have a couple of them, and they're pretty much stock. They've obviously had the tubes replaced now and then, but pretty much stock. And then, oddly enough, I mean, I have so many different bass speaker boxes that I can use, but I started just because, for convenience sake, and they fit in my car, I started using these Ampeg SVT 210 AVs, and you know what those are?
Not the 210. I've seen 410 SVT cabs, but I'm not familiar with the 210s.
I'll have to pull it up.
Yeah, well, they have this amp they came up with a couple years ago called the Micro, and it's kind of cute. It looks like a little teeny SVT, and it's supposed to go on these, and they've put little cabinets with it. Well, I got a couple of these cabinets because, I worked at Bass Northwest for quite a number of years, and they were there, and the Ampeg guy knew me, and I got them for a good deal and everything. So. And then I started using them with Heart by Heart, and all of a sudden, once they got broken in, they started sounding fantastic.
Wow.
Well, that's what I use. They're just two tiny little speakers.
Wow.
210s in each one, and they're like, they're kind of the same look as an SVT 6x or 8x10, but they're
just way tinier.
Tiny.
Wow, that's cool.
And you know that the theory between SVT 8x10 is it's 4 separate 210 cabinets. Did you know that?
Yeah, they're compartmentalized inside.
Yeah, so this is just one half of an SVT.
So what is it? What is it called? It's the 210 AV.
It's called an SVT 210 AV.
Yeah, they now have a 212 AV and a 112 AV, but that must be a discontinued cabinet, I guess. But
no, I think they still make the micro.
Really? Oh yeah, micro. There it is. The CLR stack. Oh, look at that thing. Yeah, look at it. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But I don't use the amp head. Yeah. I just use the cabinet. But
there it is.
That's cool.
And I use the 300-watt all-tube head going through those little cabinets, and it sounds fantastic. I can't even... Once, I just would take them to rehearsals because they were easy to get in and out of the car and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden I went, geez, these sound pretty good. So I've used them wherever I can.
Wow.
That is pretty cool.
I'm all about lightening the load, man. And I can't believe you still carry around an SVT.
That's awesome.
Every
well, it's just you can't compromise on something.
True, that is true.
We've had many discussions about.
Oh
that.
yeah. That is very cool, man. Well, I think we ran the gamut from pre-heart all the way up to heart by heart. That is just so awesome, man. It's great to get that history behind everything.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun. We're actually going to be in Atlantic City here in July 4th.
Oh, wow.
We're going to be at Resorts Atlantic City in New Jersey.
Well, maybe we'll have to take a run up. It's only a couple hours from here. We'll take a run up and see you guys. Yeah,
well, let me know, and I'll see if we can get you on the guest list. I'm sure we can.
Very cool.
That'd be awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, that's you haven't seen them yet. You got to see them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, the night before we're going to be at Dundalk Heritage Fair too.
What, Dundalk Heritage Fair?
That's where I'd seen them the last time. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? We will see you there.
That's
I guarantee
in our backyard.
You. I guarantee you we'll see you there.
For sure, come to that because I can get you underneath the big oak tree that's behind the stage.
I've been under that big oak tree.
I know the guys in the band.
That's right. Yeah, that's fun. And vocally.
And he can tell us stories that he can't tell us now.
There you go. There you go. Between him and DeRozier, I'm sure they got a couple. But and I might forgive me. I'm forgetting the name of your vocalist, but man, what a set of pipes.
Yeah, Summer. Summer.
Yeah.
Summer Masick, and she's actually my fiance.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that cuts down on the price.
I did not know. No, man, they're double dipping.
Well, that's what we keep trying to tell Lizzie and Summer. I said, you know how corporate world works. That women only make 70% of what men make.
That is so funny.
They're not. They don't fall for it. They're not falling for it.
Right. Good. Good. Yeah, I was talking to Lizzie the last time I'd seen you guys, and she's good too. She fits the part well too.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, oddly enough, at the jam last night, Randy wasn't there, so Lizzie was doing all the lead parts.
Oh wow.
She can rip it up too.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, Randy's a busy boy. We spoke a couple of times, and we've got him scheduled for a few 3-4 weeks from now because it's when he's back around again and available. He's I think he's in Europe right now or something.
Oh,
so,
yeah, he is. Yeah,
Wow.
He's a busy guy too. We'll talk about his other project with him, which is a very cool thing.
Cool.
But do you do anything outside of Heart by Heart, Steve? I mean, is there anything else you want to plug? Do you have any solo stuff or any other hobby that we would like to know about? Or,
Well, my hobby is mountain climbing.
Oh wow!
And that is a total. I mean, that's the total opposite of being on stage because you're off in the mountains and no one.
Yeah.
You're doing all this cool stuff and no one sees it.
And if you screw up, it's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that.
I've had a great time. I mean, Washington State is an awesome place for getting in the backcountry and getting some elevation and everything. And there's some awesome, like, extinct volcanoes you can hike to.
Cool.
And yeah, it's amazing. But
Very nice.
but as far as music goes, Heart by Heart is my sole project. Yeah.
Cool.
That's cool stuff, man.
And yeah, and we're working on original stuff too. We have a couple things in the can, but there's no sense in putting it out until people know about you a little bit more.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's actually going to be some original stuff. That's very cool. That's
Yeah,
very
man.
cool. Are you?
Right now, my producer friend has a keyboard player that's pretty good. That's putting a keyboard part on it right now.
Very cool. You could put that under Heart by Heart, or you gonna?
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that we can do it as Heart by Heart, but it might be under Fossen. Who knows?
There you go. It could be under anything.
I don't know. But Heart by Heart, it'd be good because that's the brand name
Sure.
that we're trying to
Right.
put out there.
Right. I was just curious because it wouldn't be heart music,
Yeah.
but and it would be something very cool by just a band of very talented musicians, So
Yeah, well, playing with Randy and Lizzie and Summer, I mean, almost when we did these original songs, they ended up having, kind of what would happen if Heart would have stayed together and with Mike and I
Yeah.
and progressed along, and that's kind of
cool.
Kind of how it sounds.
Yeah, well, cool.
And Howard was involved on the recordings too.
Oh, really?
So. Yeah,
very nice.
awesome.
Very nice. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, thanks for taking the time, man.
Yeah, man, this is
really
the greatest
appreciated having you. And when you're around next time, we'll be sure to come out. And
Absolutely.
maybe we'll follow you up to Atlantic City. We've got some friends up there. We can. I know where we can crash. So it's okay. It's good.
I got friends in Hoboken.
that'd be great. So should I expect my check being
absolutely
cut out tomorrow, or
as soon as we get paid?
There you go.
Okay, I got you. No, I'm kidding.
That's for sure, man.
No, it's great talking to you guys too. I mean, you guys did your homework and you know what's going. You have a little bit of history to add yourselves, and that's very cool.
Yeah, man.
Very, very nice talking to you guys.
Likewise.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
glad you enjoyed yourself. Thanks for taking the time. And I know it's coming into busy season, so I'm glad we got you when we could.
Yeah.
And we will see you next time around, and hopefully all of our listeners will go out and check out Heart by Heart when they come to a city near you, because they're if you dig Heart, you're going to dig the hell out of it, man. These guys are really, really spot on.
Good.
So you'll love them. So
I got one more story.
Cool.
Go ahead.
So the 2-inch tape and the Masters, when Shelley Siegel died, they got either misplaced or whatever, but they disappeared, right? So when we went to make a CD of Dreamboat Annie, we thought it was lost because there was no masters around, and you can't make a CD from a record,
Right.
Yeah.
So Flickr started making phone calls, and he found this master that had been shipped to Australia.
What?
That ended up not getting used because they used, they shipped a couple of them there, and one of them got used and the other one didn't. So he had that shipped back to America, and that's how they made the
Wow.
CD for Dreamboat Annie.
So there was a 2-inch master sitting in Australia for years.
Well, no, it wasn't a 2-inch master. It was
a half-inch?
a quarter-inch master.
Okay.
Wow.
And that was, and otherwise, all the other ones had been lost over time, or used so much that they'd lost their sound characteristics.
Wow. So you found a 2-inch. So I'm assuming then that the 2-inch multi-track was not available either.
Yeah, no one knows where that is.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's disappeared, and there's a lot of speculation, but and that's with the whole thing with Mushroom Records. That's when all that lawsuit stuff went down. So
Yeah.
you can understand that.
Sure.
Maybe there was some animosity, and that's why it got lost.
I mean, how cool would that be to have the multi-track, and then dump that all into like Pro Tools
at 96 kilohertz,
right, and not have to have 8 hands on a 16 or 16 hands on a 16 channel board, and to just like be able to remix Dreamboat Annie again.
And what they can do.
I mean, how cool would that have been? Wow.
Or just hear all the tracks the way we recorded them back then. That'd be amazing. I'd love that.
Yeah,
man.
Maybe someday. Maybe it'll turn up someday.
Maybe. Probably have to bake it first, but 2-inch tape. But well, cool. I hope it turns up someday for you, man. We'll put some good energy out in the universe for you, and someday it'll turn up.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Someday
Appreciate
it'll turn up.
Absolutely.
All right, Steve. Well, we're going to run and wrap the show. And again, thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you, man. And we'll see you. We'll see you in Dundalk for sure.
Likewise.
And there you have the story.
And what a story!
Wow,
that is so awesome, man.
That's going way back, man. That's what people that don't know what it was like to record like that back in the day.
Or the way the touring and all was.
Yeah.
Those stories, those are hard to imagine in our day and age. That your amps were the amps. Mm-hmm. There was no mics in front of your amps.
Right.
The PA was used for the drums and for the vocals.
Right.
And that it's just hard to comprehend, but well,
I know when I was playing in high school bands, that's the way it was. Now it never got stadium size or anything.
Yeah.
But even can you imagine? I don't even know if they were actually mic'd. Maybe they weren't. But can you imagine like the Beatles at Shea Stadium?
They said people couldn't even hear.
Oh no, you couldn't even hear the cheering. But
yeah,
just amps and drums and vocals coming through what was probably a couple of 100-watt PA system.
It was
at the
probably
time.
the Shure PAs,
Vocal Master or something. Right?
Yeah, with the anti-feedback switches.
Oh yeah,
remember those?
I remember those. I do. Yeah, or maybe it was Voice of the Theaters or something like that. But everything used to come off the stage for a long time, and that's why there were 100-watt Marshalls and high watts, and then 200-watt,
and they were like 6 plugged all into each other.
Right.
There was no like spares,
and then the bass player, you couldn't get any more power out of tube amps, so they started making solid state amps. So your bass player can have a 600-watt solid state amp,
and 3 of those,
right? Like Entwistle with the Sun things, but all that used to have to be pushed out from behind you.
That's why Ted Nugent has no hearing.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Pete Townsend has no hearing.
He has tinnitus.
And I wonder how many guys, if you went back in the day, just are like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Because for
sure.
I remember
he had a great bass rig though, didn't he?
Oh yeah,
with the Fender 400
crazy, yeah.
and a couple of dual Showmans.
I remember seeing a picture live of Paul Kossoff, who was not a very tall man, standing in front of 2 Marshall full stacks, literally a foot and a half away from it with that Les Paul. I mean, that had to be killing him. Notes rang different then, kids.
True.
Not a lot of compression going on.
Yeah, they're loud and proud, man. Loud and proud. Well,
so
there you have it, man.
What an awesome one. This is one of my favorites.
A lot of history there.
Yeah, you can't fit that with anything else, man. That's just he lived that whole time, and it's like, so did you meet all 3 of those guys?
2. He still hasn't met Sir Paul, but
I met 2 of them. It's like you met John Paul Jones. Probably like, we shared a stage for a while.
And I'm thinking at this point he's going to meet Sir Paul at some point because he may be a little harder to meet in some situations, but in other situations I'm sure he's probably a little easier to meet. So I got a feeling he's going to run into Sir Paul soon.
Yeah. So my friend, until next time.
And there will be.
I am Mick Marcelino. And you?
Am not.
Are.
and
the intro's not that long.
That's true. And we're saying
onward. I'm saying it.
There you go. See ya.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @AmpsandAxes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.